Welcome back to another video on RVA MTB. I'm here with some buying advice for you today. I've compiled 8 hardtails that are all under $800. I've spent probably way too much of my own time researching bikes, so I figured maybe I could save you some time and pass on some information to you. All of the bikes that I've found are aluminum, and we will start with direct-to-consumer sales. And the first one in that is going to be this Raleigh Tokul 2. So this is a $699 aluminum hardtail. It has an SR Suntour XCM coil spring fork. It has 120 millimeters of travel, and actually does have a 15 millimeter through axle, so that's going to give you a little extra stiffness in the front end of that bike. Of course, the XCM, the coil spring, not the greatest. You'd like to have an air fork, but for this price range, that's kind of what you're going to get on almost all of these bikes that I'm showing here. So it's got a Shimano Alivio 1x9 drivetrain. I'm a big fan of 1x drivetrains. The 9 in the back is a little bit limiting. In terms of geometry, it's got a 69-degree head angle, so it's a little bit more progressive than, you know, sort of an old school XC bike. The next one we'll take a look at, a Diamondback Line, and you'll actually notice some similarities in these two websites, and that's because Diamondback and Raleigh are owned by the same company. And the bikes are actually pretty similar as well. So $799, what that gets you is a lot of the same stuff. You're going to get another SR Suntour XCM coil spring, 120 millimeters of travel. And let's see here, I'm not sure if we can see. Looks like that may just be a quick release. I'm not too sure on that. And in terms of the drivetrain, you're going to get a Shimano Acera 1x9 this time. And you can see, if we zoom in here, it's got a little bit of a chain guide built into it. So that should help with the chain, you know, not falling off. What that most likely means is that the rear derailleur on this does not have a clutch in it. But if the end goal is for the chain to stay on, then that should do it. And let's see, the geometry on that, you can take a look at the size guide here and see all the different geometry. You know, head angle, it's one of the things I look at first. 68 degrees. That seems like that's the standard for, you know, a modern trail style hardtail. So pretty good there. A little more expensive than the one we looked at previously. So the next on the list, and this is somewhere between online sales and direct to consumer, it's a Vitus Nucleus 27.5 VRS model, and it's not the top of the range, it's the next from the top of the range on theirs. Vitus, it seems like Vitus is actually owned or somehow very closely connected to chain reaction cycles. So on this bike, you are going to be getting a 2x9 instead of a 1x9, which was on the past two bikes. So it's going to give you some more gear range. The other big thing about this is the fork. Suntour XCM Boost Air. So this is the only fork in all these bikes we're going to look at, well, aside from the next one, which you'll see in a second, the only one that has an air fork, and it has 120 millimeters of travel. Some of the other things, WTB STI 29 rims, so 29 millimeters wide. That's definitely a nice thing to have. Front hub boost spacing, so that's another plus on this bike. And the geometry on this one is the other thing that makes it stand out, and it's actually the reason that I bought one of these for myself, and that is because it has a 66.5 degree head angle. So that's going to help you with descents, and this is coming in at a $699 price point, so good value there. And then the next one that I'm going to throw in here is the VRX model of the Nucleus, and this one is a little bit of a cheater because it's $829, so it's, you know, $29 above the $800 price point. But the things that stand out on this is that you get a 1x10 drivetrain with a good amount of range in it, and then you get the SR Suntour Radon air fork in the front, which is going to be lighter than the XCM Air. And the next bike in the lineup is one that you may not expect, but it is a Dick's Sporting Goods bike. It's the Nishiki Colorado Comp 27.5. There are a couple really interesting things about this bike, despite the fact that it's sold from a big box store. The first of those being that it is a 1x, and it's a 1x11, the only bike in this lineup that has that. It's a SRAM NX. So it is a very nice drivetrain on this bike, especially at the price point. Currently $599. This thing, when it was last holiday Christmas season, it hovered around $400, got as low as $350 at one point. I think like a Black Friday kind of deal. I mean, for $350, that's worth it for the drivetrain alone. But the other thing that makes this stand out, 27.5 plus tires. So it's the only one here with plus size tires. It's got a SR Suntour XCM fork, and that is, you know, run-of-the-mill heavy coil spring fork. One of the big downsides of this bike is actually the fork and the steerer combination. So what you have is 27.5 plus. You've got a through axle on the front, 15 millimeter through axle, and you have a straight steerer tube on that fork. And the issue with that is that it really limits your options if you ever want to upgrade. It is, as far as I can tell, impossible to find an air fork that's going to have a straight steerer tube and it's going to have the through axle at the 27.5 plus size. One of the things that you can do is find a straight steerer tube 29er fork and get new wheels and tires and basically convert this bike over to a 29er. So it's an option, you know, at the $599 price point, probably not the best bike out there. At $350, it's kind of a steal. So now we're moving more into local bike shop, or sort of national but trustworthy bike shop territory, starting with this Cannondale Trail 7. So $720, and it is a 27.5/29, so it sizes up. I think if you go beyond a medium maybe, then you're getting a 29er, and if you're smaller, maybe medium, then you're getting a 27.5. So this bike, and actually the next three bikes, are all very similar in terms of spec and pricing. So this is a 2x9 Shimano Altus, and you are getting the SR Suntour XCM fork. So same fork as the last bike, coil spring, you know, not the greatest, 100 millimeters of travel, and this bike in terms of geometry has a 68-degree head angle. It's got 19 millimeter internal width on the rim, so that's pretty narrow by today's standards, but it's usable. You actually have boost spacing in the rear hub, which is pretty interesting, and Shimano brakes. So overall, a pretty decent package. So the next one on the list, Giant Talon 2. This is definitely, you know, a local bike shop kind of purchase. I mean, maybe you can buy these things online. I'm not really sure, but why wouldn't you get it from a bike shop where they can set it up for you and take care of all of that general maintenance that comes up in the start and everything. So $720. This is the 27.5. There is a 29-inch range, like a completely different model. But let's see, we got Shimano Dior Shadow Plus as a 2x9 drivetrain. So a little bit higher than the Cannondale we just looked at. Same SR Suntour XCM, same travel, 100 millimeters. This has a 68-degree head angle. So like I said, sort of that standard range nowadays. Tektro brakes, 21 millimeters for the internal rim width. And one of the really cool things about this bike is that the tires are set up tubeless from the factory. So that'll save you some time, save you some effort, and give you a nice ride quality and some flat avoidance going forward. So next on the list, another bike shop bike, the Marin Bobcat Trail 4. And there's like a lot of these bikes, different ranges. You know, the 4 is just, Trail 4 is the one that fits into this price range. So $699, and what that gets you is a Shimano Altus 2x9. So that's actually exactly the same as what we saw on the Cannondale. You also get the SR Suntour XCM fork again, 100 millimeters travel again, and in terms of geometry, 68-degree head angle. Of course, there's other geometry specs to look at. And then Tektro brakes on this bike, and let's see, the rims, I think I saw somewhere, I think I saw that they were 25 millimeters internal width, so decent setup there. And then the last one to look at, is the Trek Marlin 7, and this is normally $779, and currently it's on sale for $729. I don't know if that's something that's just kind of like a permanent sale or what. One thing I'll say is they do a great job with their photography. I love these nature shots as opposed to the stark studio shots. But we're getting, again, the Shimano Altus 2x9. The fork is different. RockShox XC30 coil, so it's a different brand, but it's still 100mm, still a coil spring. Tektro brakes again, and the tires and the rims are one of the things that would keep me away from this bike. The rear tire is, I believe, only a 2.0 maybe. Yeah, tires, you're getting 2.2 in the front, 2.0 in the rear, so pretty narrow, much more of a XC style bike. And that also shows in the next thing the 69.5 degree head angle, so this is the steepest head angle of any of the bikes. You know, good for XC, not so great when you get a little more rough or a little more downhill. So there you have 8 different bikes, and then sort of a 9th one that just cheats a little bit over the price range, varying from local bike shop bikes to big box Dick's Sporting Goods to direct to consumer. And that's also certainly one thing you should consider. You know, you may get some more value in these direct to consumer bikes or these online sale bikes, but you're not going to get the local bike shop experience. You're not going to get the setup by them. You're not going to get the support by them. On the other hand, if you like to set your bikes up yourself, if you like to maintain them yourself, it's not a bad option. And of course, when you buy a bike online, you are kind of rolling the dice a little bit because you have no idea if you're actually going to like the bike. You don't know if it's going to fit you well. You don't know if the geometry is really going to suit you how you thought it would. On the other hand, if you go to a local bike shop, you can do a test ride. You can really get a feel for everything on the bike and decide if it's really the right bike for you. And so, hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it informative. If there are any bikes that I left off, definitely leave a comment below, and like to hear what you guys think. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Give me a thumbs up if you like it, and we'll see you for a new video soon.